May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, doing our bit to help preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his. And anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want, within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, one Sheridan Adams, formerly Sheridan Ericson. And Sheridan came to the Zen Center, to Sokoji, to study with Shunryu Suzuki in 1965. She was at the first practice period at Tassajara. She was around there for some years, and later she got involved with Spirit Rock, and Vipassana, and was very involved with getting the whole diversity thing going there, and both in terms of understanding and encouraging more diversity within their ranks and using their facilities. Anyway, we talk about all that. And she's been working on, she'll tell you about, she's been working with a teacher on a sort of sound practice. Sort of reminded me of an audio version of Charlotte Silver work. But anyway, she'll tell you about that. And she's been a psychotherapist. And she's going to retire next year. So I want to read you something that we have on Cuke.com from her, something she sent years ago. She said, this incident took place in 1965 or 66. Suzuki Roshi invited his students to accompany him on a visit to the Buddhist Church of San Francisco, which is part of the Buddhist Churches of America, BCA, the Jodo Shinshu, or Pure Land branch of Buddhism. We, many of us in our 20s, incidentally, the BCA, Buddhist Church, was just around the corner from Sokoji on Octavia. You just go up the street, make a left, and there it is. So she says, many of us in our 20s seated ourselves on the wooden pews in the church sanctuary. Although there were Buddhist images and objects in the sanctuary, we were comparing the atmosphere to that of the simple zendo at Sokoji. Where are the zapus? Why are these hymn-like books sitting in the rack on the back of the pew in front of us? As one of the priests from the church was talking to us about Shin Buddhism, some of us were chuckling amongst ourselves. We, who had begun to learn about Zen and Buddhism maybe a year ago, thought we all knew about real Buddhism, and this wasn't it. We had no idea we were being observed. At the beginning of Zazen the next morning, Suzuki Roshi began walking around the zendo with his stick, which was highly unusual. We had acted rudely out of ignorance and arrogance, and he was furious. Roshi hit each student with his stick and shouted, "You think you know everything about Buddhism. You know nothing." he was right. So after we've had our pause to meditate, we'll give Sheridan Adams, formerly Sheridan Ericson, a call. So when you hear the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause. And we'll be here to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever. And we'll give Sheridan Adams, formerly Ericson, a call.
David?
Aha, there you are.
Hi, just one sec.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, that's good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah.
Really nice photo of you and your husband. And very nice one of you earlier. My, yes, really good. So thanks. So what are you up to? What are you doing these days?
Are we going to start here?
Yeah, we started when you answered.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. What am I doing these days? I'm just kind of beginning to retire as a psychotherapist. So I'm working part-time, and I'm not really accepting new clients because I'm probably, I think I'll retire by early 2025.
Oh.
Yes.
That's over a year from now.
I know. Yeah. It's going to take a little while to do it.
Yeah. Because you have clients that you have to wean away, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to announce it in January. I have to let people know. So that's one thing. I've really gotten into this group and this particular teacher that does kind of sounding as a emotional experience, spiritual experience. So I've been doing that for about 3 years, and everything's online. And the main woman that leads it she's in England. So people are, from around the world. So that's been really interesting and satisfying.
What's her name?
Her name is Chloe Goodchild.
And what does she teach? What's her lineage?
Her lineage. Well, I don't think she's a particular lineage.
That there are teachers like that. Like Buddha.
Right.
But it still had a history. Well, what sort of teaching does she do? I mean, what's it about?
She encourages people to, it's kind of singing or sounding, but it's very non-performative. And the idea is kind of just to open your mouth and see what appears, what comes out. And some people are more musical than others, but some, are just kind of making sounds that aren't necessarily, in quote, on tune. And that's fine with her. And then it's always followed, if somebody is sounding, it's always followed with a period of silence. And so her question is, what quality of silence does your sound leave behind? So it's a little difficult to describe, actually. But she leads it, and then we meet in triads, just 3 of us, every week, and then we sound together. And a big part of it is witnessing one another, just the idea of non-judgmental witnessing. So that's kind of a spiritual practice in itself.
Yeah, it sounds like a unique path there. But I think that there's just various ways the teachers can use the body and mind to open this up. Like Charlotte Selver, remember her and Charles Brooks with their body work? That's one thing that came to mind with me. And singing and using the voice is universally done in spiritual practices in different ways. And it's not...
That's right.
And Tatsugami, we had a teacher we called Tatsugami Roshi at Tassajara for 3 practice periods. He would say, like with me, I've done a lot of singing. He would say, when we were chanting, he'd say, no, don't sing. It's not singing.
Right.
So different ways to use the voice. The oming and the about the Gyuto monks?
Right. We do a lot of oming.
All right. Well,
a lot of oming.
There's some sutra. God, where was this? Where it's sort of like the different archetypes are talking. Avalokiteshvara and Manjushri, this way I remember it's very ancient, but I think it was Avalokiteshvara who said that sound is the only door. And it might have been as the highest door or whatever, but so I can relate to that. Yeah. Yeah.
And you've done a lot of singing, you say?
Oh yeah.
Yourself?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not really a singer. I'm a songwriter.
Okay.
So and I used to sing songs. That's all I did. And I'm not a trained singer. I'm more like a folk or rock singer. I can do some jazz and stuff like that. But I don't do any of it right now. I do it in different spurts in my life. So now, you came to the Zen. What year did you come to the Zen Center?
I came in 1965.
And why did you go there? What led you there? Where did your way-seeking mind story start?
Well, I was living with a roommate, and she was studying Gurdjieff, and she was very involved in Gurdjieff group. And somehow, I think that kind of encouraged me to explore some kind of spiritual path. And I happened on this book called The Supreme Doctrine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you know that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was just Herbert Benoit, I think was the name. It was a French author.
Right. Right. Okay.
But I don't know for sure. Actually, I wish I still had that book, because I would love to have seen what I underlined back then. You know, what felt important or what drew me. So after reading that book, I wondered if there was any kind of Zen Center in San Francisco. That's where I was living. I had no idea if there was or wasn't. So I looked in the phone book, and I saw that there was a number, and I called the number, and this very sort of soft-spoken man answered, and I asked him if I could come to a meditation, and his response was, "Please come." So I, and of course that was Suzuki Roshi.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the gentleness of his voice really struck me back then. So then I did. So I came. I was spiritually very, very young. I didn't have much background in spirituality, and I was just kind of checking it out. But then I got quite involved for a while.
The Supreme Doctrine, I was getting confused in my mind with another book, but I did read it. It came out in 1955 and
Wow.
had a foreword by Aldous Huxley.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's something I've never heard anybody mention that. But it was a book I was familiar with. So there you are in 1965, and so you went. So what happened?
You know, my memory is quite sketchy, so I don't have, it's hard for me to really go back and say what my experience was back then.
Mm-hmm. Or just say what comes to mind. Doesn't matter.
Well, yeah. I remember I definitely remember sitting in the Zendo there, and it was something that was quite, well, what am I trying to say here? I was drawn to it, and it was also quite difficult, and maybe that's not so unusual.
Yeah.
But you sent me that question that I asked Suzuki Roshi. You sent me that. Do you remember?
That was from the first practice period in the summer of '67. The show saw the question and answer with him at the end of a 7-day session, and that was the question you asked.
Right. And it was about how can I become a more sincere practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And just jumping way ahead here. We can go back if you want, but
Yeah.
I didn't really. I went through various things along the way, but in 1989, I started sitting in Vipassana with the Vipassana tradition, and that was really the first time I felt like I was a sincere practitioner.
And with what group or teacher?
Well, it was at the very beginnings of Spirit Rock.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Yeah, and for Vipassana, you don't necessarily have one teacher.
Yeah.
You do retreats, different retreats, and there are different teachers with different retreats. So
Yeah.
I can't really say. But of course, there was Jack Cornfield.
Yeah.
I think he was there the first day-long retreat I attended there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what I've done here in Bali, is Vipassana retreats.
That's where you are.
Yeah, 10-day ones and 11 days. And one 6-day one, I remember. Yeah. They're pretty tough.
What teachers are in Bali there?
Monks from Myanmar.
Okay, yeah.
And a Balinese Hindu, actually he was, told his wife, back in the 60s, that when he retired, he was going to become a monk. She said, well, you got to become a Buddhist monk then, because the Hindus, they can do anything. So he went to Myanmar and came back and founded this temple here up north. And the Dalai Lama came, and it's the biggest Buddhist temple here. And they have various types of retreats. They're more like a center now. They don't have a teacher, but I've gone to the retreats there done by Myanmar monks, and one woman in the Myanmar tradition who didn't put up with their not having any women teachers thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sounds like Buddha's aunt. Yeah. But that's it may be more rigorous with the Vipassana you're doing there. May be more rigorous than the Vipassana that traveled to the West.
The Vipassana there, it's just perfect for me, for Zen, because it's Mahasa, which is just focusing on your breath and your hara.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They do some of the, the walking meditation I've learned how to do, where you pay attention to all the different steps of walking. But
yes, I know that one.
But I did that for a while till I got to where I could do it, and then I just walked, Yeah. Well, that's neat. Yeah. The Vipassana that you did, was it? How would you characterize it?
Well, it was a little more psychological at that point.
Yeah.
than my experience with Zen, and it seems to me it felt like you got a lot more instruction.
Oh yeah.
About how to meditate, and also about the hindrances to meditation.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard about the 5 hindrances, I felt like it kind of normalized my own experience meditating.
Would you tell me what the 5 hindrances are?
Okay, well, let's see if I'm going to remember them all. One is restlessness, and these are hindrances that can come up when you're meditating. One is restlessness. That was very familiar. And another is sloth. Sloth and torpor.
Yeah. So now our sloth and torpor are the same thing, right? These are old.
Yeah.
Torpor is a very old word. Isn't that? Nothing comes to mind with me. Like
well,
it just means laziness.
Well, also sleepiness.
Is that what?
You're meditating, you get really sleepy, and your mind is like kind of wanders off, almost dreamlike, and then you realize, okay, I've gone off somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? Well, desire. That's another one. Doubt is another one. And then I believe it's anger. Or it might be being aversive or angry. But when I heard those, that kind of made me feel like, well, it kind of normalized my meditation experience. I didn't feel like a bad meditator, because I experienced all those things. I felt like, well, okay, that's what happens to many people when they meditate, and it's helpful to know that. And there's also quite a bit of labeling in the Vipassana, planning, just labeling what's going on in your mind. I don't really do that anymore, but that was part of it.
I do a little bit of labeling. I can understand that. Usually not when I'm sitting. Like if there's some type of thought that's compulsive or that I don't like or something, I just label it. I say, "Oh, that's so and so." If I have a really thought, like Bodhidharma said, the precept "do not kill" was. He said that means don't hold a thought of extinction, of extinguishing something. If I get a thought that I wish someone didn't exist or something like that, I say, that's Michael Corleone mind. You know who Michael Corleone is?
I would guess an athlete, but no.
No. He's in The Godfather. He's the son of Don Corleone, and he solved all his problems by killing people.
Okay.
Just in one way or another.
Well, right. So you kind of mix in some humor there. Which is helpful.
That's just that one example. Yeah, restlessness is the first one you mentioned. I read a book by a Myanmar monk who was considered a great master in meditation. And my understanding is that Myanmar is the of the different countries that have Theravada Buddhism are, Vipassana type Buddhism, like Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos. It's the one that focuses the most on meditation, and he said restlessness is the last thing to go. Suzuki said that sleepiness is the hardest thing to deal with. It's because it's just like, just like takes you over.
Yeah, it does. I experienced that today. Actually, well, maybe I'll get. Yeah, it's interesting. My relationship to Zen, was, with Suzuki Roshi and Tassajara, and then at some point I kind of moved away from it. And
at what point? When Suzuki was still there, or afterwards? Or what?
Yes, he was still there. And I came back from Tassajara, and I moved into Kathy Cook's apartment on North Beach.
Oh,
and
she had a place in North Beach. Huh.
She did, yes, on Mason Street. And she may have then gone back to Tassajara. At that point, and I had other roommates there.
She was at Tassajara a lot in the early years.
Okay. Yeah, and then she married Silas.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at some point I moved to Mendocino. I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place.
It doesn't matter.
I moved to Mendocino, and I was really not connected to practice, to meditating or anything. But somebody, his name was Phil Lewitt.
Oh, I know Phil Lewitt, yeah.
You do? Okay.
Big River Farm.
Well, yes. So he had heard, I don't know how he heard, I don't remember it. He had heard I'd studied with Suzuki Roshi. So he invited me to go to live at Big River Farm, which I did. And so then I got, drawn back into Zen that way. Not even intending, but it looked like a wonderful place to live, and it was. And so I got drawn back there, and that's where I met my husband.
You mean your current husband?
Yeah, my current husband.
Oh, my gosh. Good for you. I mean, that was probably, if you were there at Big River Farm with Phil, that could be like 1970, 1969.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I moved in 1973, I think, to Big River Farm.
Oh, you moved there in 73. Oh.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And I met my husband there. His name is Jeff Kitsis. And this is really jumping way forward, but he is now a Zen master in the Korean Zen tradition.
Oh, goodness. And who was his teacher?
Sansanim.
Oh, yeah, the most famous of them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I met him. Yeah.
You met him?
Well, I think it was him. I think it was him. I don't know. There were two of them that were pretty prominent, and I forget the name. But one of them, we stayed at Zen Center for a little bit as our guest.
Probably it wasn't Sansanim. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I think Sansanim went up to Canada, didn't he?
I'm not sure. What I remember of him is there was an Empty Gate Zen Center in Berkeley.
All right.
And that already existed before my Jeff knew Sansanim, and he heard about a retreat there, and Jeff was living in Mendocino then, and he went to Berkeley, and once he sat a retreat with Sansanim, that was it. He was just all in for that. So he's been in that in the Quantum Zen school since that time.
Yeah, I was thinking of somebody else. Sansanim. Yeah, but he was very, had a really good reputation, and it's one of the major Zen teachers to have come to America, and people forget that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, what's your husband's last name?
His last name is Kitses. It's Kitzes.
Now, you used to be Sheridan Ericson, right?
Right.
And now you're Sheridan Adams. What's that about?
Okay. Erickson was my first husband that didn't last very long.
You were very young then, my gosh.
Very young, yeah. That lasted maybe until 1963. And then I eventually went back to my maiden name, which is Adams. And then
okay.
I just kept that.
Yeah.
And Jeff also has a Dharma name, which sometimes he goes by. And the first name of that is Bon, B-O-N, and then the second name is Song, S-O-E-N-G. So it's Bon Song.
And where does he teach?
Well, he teaches in that style, in the Quantum Zen style, which does include koans.
Mm-hmm.
However, some teachers in that school are much more koan oriented than Jeff is. Jeff is also a psychotherapist, so he does koan practice with students, but he also integrates other things. Just
and do they use Zazen?
Yes, yeah. They don't call it Zazen, but they
What do they
just
call
meditation.
it? Oh, they just call it.
I think just sitting.
Sitting.
Basically.
Yeah, well, we use sitting too. Yeah, well, that's very interesting. So you came to Zen Center to Sokoji in '65, and you were at the first practice period at Tassajara, and then you left at some point while Suzuki was still alive. Do you remember why?
Why I left? Maybe to sum it up, a couple things is I never felt I was a good Zen student, which is kind of weird to say in a way, like good, bad. It's not really the point, but I think I think what I expected of myself, I wasn't meeting those expectations. So I think it was kind of easy to drift away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I understand. You were, and do you remember, like, did you do that? Do you remember the new building on Page Street?
Oh yeah, the San Francisco Zen Center.
Yeah.
You mean? Yeah.
So you were still around when we got that?
No, I wasn't practicing at that building. What I remember though, when I heard that Suzuki Roshi was very sick, I did go in 1971.
Yeah.
And Suzuki Roshi gave a talk. I think it was just before he died. He wasn't well when he gave that talk.
His last talks were in August, and he died in December 4th. Oh, so you went and heard him give a talk in August?
Yes. Well, just knowing that, I guess I must have heard he was really sick and he wasn't going to live long. So
we didn't know that in August, but people were saying it. It's true. It was sort of in the air, but we didn't even. He didn't even know he had cancer then.
Oh, okay.
He'd been talking sort of about dying, and people were sort of worried about it that year. Yeah, for sure. And so it's very understandable. But it wasn't until October that they learned that he had cancer. And then he went downhill very quickly from then. All right. So now you were close with Tim Burkett, right?
Yes. Tim and Linda.
Yeah.
His wife, yes.
And he was, he was involved in getting the whole Los Altos Zendo going and all that. In fact, he started it in Palo Alto. Were you involved with it any?
A little bit, because Linda, his wife, and I did the Montessori training in Los Altos. And I sometimes sat at Marion Derby's Zendo, the Los Altos Zendo. So, yes. So I was kind of involved when I was there at Los Altos.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You felt you weren't meeting your own expectations. Suzuki tried to tell people it's okay. However you're practicing is fine. Just accept it the way it is. But it, it's very hard for us not to be critical of ourselves,
right,
and dissatisfied, and but also that's legitimate because it's not like it wasn't like a cult that said you have to stay. Any thoughts you have about leaving are not permissible.
Right.
And he understood. Well, like Tim, Suzuki recognized Tim had very deep experiences, and Tim moved on pretty quickly. Wasn't even interested in staying. A lot of people didn't want to stay because Zen Center got too big and busy.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when you came in 1965, things hadn't started, getting going is, there was, I think maybe in 65 it started, but 66 there were just so many people coming because of the whole hippie thing and LSD and all that. And then Tassajara, and it just sort of exploded. Yeah. Who else do you remember from back then?
I moved to, there was a while where I lived right across from the Zen Center, Sokoji. And it was right on, exactly, I think, across.
Yeah.
On the corner. And so I lived in a building where I roomed with Dwight Brown, Ed Brown's brother.
Right, and Judy.
And what I remember is Dwight, I thought he had a girlfriend named Linda.
Judy.
I don't know. Judy? Was Judy? Okay.
Yeah.
Then there was also a woman named Ruth, and I don't remember her last name.
Ruth, R-U-T-H?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was her name. Yeah.
Huh.
And then what we called him then was Reverend Katagiri and his wife. They lived on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember those people. There was also, then, let's see, Tim Buckley and I were partners for a while.
Oh, is that right?
While I was there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I lived with him before. I lived at Loring's. You remember Loring's? Loring Palmer?
No.
Tim lived at Loring's for a while, and me too. We had rooms there. And,
okay.
That's interesting. Well,
And I certainly remember Silas. I remember this after evening practice, at times Silas and Stan and I would go and have dinner in Japantown.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, and Silas and Stan always got along. Stan worked for Silas at his warehouse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and there was a woman named Evelyn. I think that was her name, but I don't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure how long she stayed at
well, she was at Tassajara. She went to Tassajara.
Okay.
And even later, she was at Gringo. She had, she would have periodic episodes with rather extreme behavior, and she got fixated on Suzuki, and that didn't work. And she tried Katagiri, and she got fixated on Kobun. And because of, and then at Tassajara, one day she came into the Zendo during afternoon service naked. And when the service was over, she went up in the altar, and everybody was sort of speechless. She was sitting on a zafu, and she started giving a lecture. But
wow!
Then Peter Schneider said, "Well, Evelyn, he got her gently escorted out, and Kobun felt that was all his fault because he had succumbed to her wily ways." And Kobun was sort of devastated by that for a while. She also interrupted one of Suzuki's lectures, coming in ringing a bell, and saying, you don't have to sit anymore. Jesus Christ is the answer. And Suzuki said to her, okay, very good, but how will you survive? And somehow that worked on her, and she just sat down. But she, most of the time she was sort of neat. She'd been the wife of a Seventh-day Adventist dentist down in, where are they, Ojai, down in there? No, Loma Linda.
Loma Linda. Mm-hmm.
And she left that life and became a biker chick. And with some group like the Hells Angels. And after a couple of years of that, she moved across the street from Zen Center. She was the first person I met from Zen Center.
Oh, wow.
I bought pot.
I might have heard some of that, but I've forgotten it. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. I bought pot from her. I didn't even, and I said, what's that over there? She said, that's the Zen Center. I went, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Evelyn, so you remember Evelyn. Well, that brought back memories. I wonder what happened to her. She was older.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she was going, I think, with a guy at the time named Mike.
Well,
yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know about that. Well, so how did you become a psychotherapist?
How did I become? Well, I just decided to try it out, and a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, was going to Cal State Hayward studying to be a psychotherapist, and I had done a number of different kinds of things before that, and I just thought it was a good thing to try out. So I did, and I liked it. I was interested in studying it, and then the next year, my husband joined me, and he started also at the Cal State Hayward. And yeah, so.
Well, you already had a college degree. This was graduate.
I did.
Well,
I did.
Where'd you go to college?
UC Berkeley.
Where do you come from?
I've lived all my life in California. I was brought up in the San Francisco Peninsula, Menlo Park.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Nice area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how much study do you have to do? How many years to be a psychotherapist?
Well, you study. Let's see. I think it was 2 years, and then you become an intern. You have to intern with supervision. Mm-hmm. So I think I did that for 2 years. Then you have to pass this exam. And then after you pass the exam, you're finally a certified psychotherapist.
Do you need any sort of medical knowledge? You have to take a bunch of medical courses or anything?
Well, that would be if you were a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
You would need that. But I'm what's called marriage and family therapist, which also differs from a psychologist. A psychologist, you have to have a PhD. and a marriage family therapist, you just need a master's.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've always wondered about those things. Psychiatrist, psychologist, psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's so so you worked with family
Well,
therapy.
it was, it's called marriage and family therapist, but you also can do individual therapy. It allows you to do individual therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was inclined to do. So that's what I've done. You can see couples or families,
Mm-hmm.
but I was just drawn to see individuals. And since the pandemic, I've done it, and like many therapists, doing it all online.
Boy, yeah. Therapists,
Yeah.
Zen teachers, just so much is online.
So much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And 12-step meetings online. A lot of that goes on here. Yeah, it's become an online world has grown exponentially since COVID, for sure.
Right.
In
some ways kind of taken over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gave up, in 2020, I gave up my office. So now, even though COVID has died down somewhat, I don't have an office. So I'm still doing it online.
Boy, I've heard that. That is not the first time I've heard that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. So, COVID, I guess it made a permanent dent in the real estate market too.
Yes. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So many empty buildings in San Francisco.
Well, that's I've got a sort of picture of your life path now. It's been pretty steady. Do you have anything we haven't touched on?
Let's see.
Anything come to mind?
Yeah. Well, let's see. One thing is I got drawn into doing a lot of diversity work within the Buddhist community.
And what year?
And that was in around 1996, 1997.
And is that involved with Spirit Rock?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You're ahead of your time there.
Yes, I heard something that just kind of totally moved my mind, and it was a seminar from it was a place called Stir Fry, and there was there was a video. I think I saw some kind of video of a workshop, and a man named Victor. He just started in about white privilege, and he was so eloquent, and it just changed me. So I, at one of the retreats, one of the Spirit Rock retreats, but this particular one was held in Santa Rosa. I just said there are not many people of color here, and if anybody wants to meet after the retreat and talk about it, I'd like to do that. So that kind of just led into quite a few years of doing diversity work in the Spirit Rock community. And there was a Spirit Rock Diversity Committee.
What do you do?
That I joined.
I mean, do you go out and recruit people? I mean,
well, it's more educational, the kind of explaining why people of color might not feel comfortable in a mostly white space.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, many people of color actually, at Spirit Rock, kind of formed together, and so they do people of color retreats. And that seems to be what many people of color, they want to be amongst other people of color. They don't want to just be one or two people in a whole group of white people.
Right.
So,
yeah. A lot of the diversity movement has led to a new type of segregation where, like universities like Harvard and others have, like black-only dormitories or classes. There's a lot of that happening. And then, that's rather interesting to people who were involved, and I was in small ways with segregation, trying to eliminate segregation. Mm-hmm. And to me, the most important thing is voting area. Basically white people trying to keep control of politics by making it hard for people of color to vote, but not just people of color, groups that are identified as being sympathetic to having people of color vote. Mm-hmm. So, they'll take voting stations away from universities and minority neighborhoods, and that's really terrible.
Yeah. And then there's gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering is also, there are some states that have neutral committees decide on how each area is apportioned. But there are people that say if we don't gerrymander, we can't keep up with them. That's a big deal. I think there should be a national law that sets how districts are divided up. And to me, the area of civil rights and just rights in general is, if we want to express our brotherly, sisterly love, just give people their rights. And, love in the Bible, I like Thomas More's interpretation. It means respect, and, I tell you, you don't really have to love your neighbor. You just have to respect their rights. It's not an emotional thing.
Yeah.
It's, Yeah, it seems to me that say Zen and Vipassana would attract fewer minorities because they just don't promise enough. I mean, has always been the biggest sect of Buddhism in America is Nichiren Shoshu, which you can chant to get money
right.
and cars and that's always. I mean, back in the 60s, it had a lot of minorities and and poor people.
Interesting.
I mean, Zen Center had nothing to offer disenfranchised people. Are they? It didn't seem like it.
Well, what's happened in this area is a center has formed. It's called the East Bay Meditation Center, and it's almost, I don't know, 80%. It's basically for what do you call it? The minority groups.
Mm-hmm.
That's so most of the members are either people of color or lesbian, LGBTQ, and also they have meetings for disabled people. So it's really it's thriving. It's been there for years.
Oh, now what is it?
Thriving.
What's it called?
It's called the East Bay Meditation Center.
And where's it located?
And it's in Oakland, California.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And are they open to people like me?
They are not. Well, they do have some meditation centers sessions where everybody can go.
Oh, but they have closed ones. They have segregated ones too.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
And who can go to them? Who can go to the segregated?
Well, they'll have like a retreat. Many of the retreats are just for people of color.
Well. Does that include Asians?
Yes.
So, because Asians are, there's different types of Asians. Chinese and Japanese are, they're pretty racist groups there. There's a lot of racism there. Against black people, especially. When I lived in Japan, I'd hear people complain about being discriminated against by Japanese. I said, "What, are you kidding? They discriminate in favor of us." But I live with people of color a great deal of the time here, and it's very comfortable. But it's not like there aren't all those issues here.
Well, so David, you live. How long have you been living in Bali?
10 years.
That long?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I'm around people of color who work for us, and people of color who, we know in a more economically equal way. But it's different. It's like, it's not like in America. It's like, people who work for us, they have really good jobs. They make pretty good money. Indonesians have people working for them. It's much more I mean, there's always discrimination and prejudice and all that, but wow, it's so much smoother here. But they have had serious waves of anti-Chinese violence here, with many, many, many thousands of Chinese being tens of thousands killed in mid-60s. And there was anti-Chinese period in around 98, 99. But Chinese Indonesians are, an important part of Indonesia, and everything's pretty copacetic here. That's race is always, it's a problem. It doesn't go away.
It hasn't yet.
People will point to why Trump, won the electoral college he won, and why he's done so well. And you'll always hear, well, the working people weren't getting their share and this and that. But I follow statistical analysis a lot, and Nate Silver, who was really made it big in modern times, he said, it's more like, what's that phrase? White something. White people feeling like they're losing power.
Yes.
There's a name word for it. He said that, that registered the highest as a reason why people will. When it gets down to is white supremacy, what people wanting, not to lose their white supremacy, but they're not really saving anything, But anyway,
that's a huge topic.
Yeah. Well, so you got the diversity thing going there at Spirit Rock, but did it increase the number of, the percentage of minority participation?
I think it did. I mean, especially since they began to have people of color retreats. I think that really increased it quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, Dogen experienced it when he went to China, and you'll see it in the annals of Zen. Who was it? The sixth patriarch was from the southern China, and they said, people from southern China can't understand Zen. If you just look at the history of people in general, you'll find just so much, especially, as different types of people get to where they're meeting. There's just so much discrimination of different types. Like I lived in Okayama, Japan, and people in Okayama would say, people here are really good people. They're not snobby like Kyoto people. And then I'd go to this other small town to teach, and they'd say, God, I can't even remember the name of it. It was about an hour and a half away by train. I'd go there once a week, teach all day, and with my wife then. And people there would say, this is a nice town. People are real open and easygoing. They're not snobs like, people down in Okayama. And I grew up in Fort Worth, and We were anti-Dallas, but the racial stuff goes much deeper. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that can be true, like in Berkeley too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where the thought that we're better, we're more liberal. There's more. We're more intelligent. I mean, I don't really feel that, but I just, you know, Berkeley has its own way of feeling superior, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Well, hey, let's look at the the Jewish Arab Israeli Palestinian those conflicts. Those people are they're not all Semitic. Iranians aren't Semitic, and I don't know about the makeup of Palestinian people, but basically they're all cousins. They're all related. They're all, saying somebody's anti-Semitic, that can mean they're against Arabs, because Arabs are Semitic, and yet those people have been fighting each other, and just wanting to annihilate each other forever.
It's very sad right now.
Yeah, and I read once. Remember once at Uganda they had the Tutsis and the other group. That I heard that they were their group was arbitrarily assigned by whoever colonized them. And Henry Ford, so many things come to mind. Henry Ford, in order to keep wages down, would pit white people against minorities and his workers. I remember that. And even in the Brown administration, I worked in the Brown administration some, and he had a guy head of the National Guard who'd gone to UC Santa Cruz with him and became an Army, an Army officer. And Jerry Brown appointed him head of the National Guard just because he knew him, California National Guard. And he was such a right-winger, and I knew him. I talked to him because my boss was a retired colonel from the Army. He was great, too. Although he'd say, well, when they say power to the people, I don't think they're including me. But anyway, Schober, the head of the National Guard, I was talking to him once, and he was patting my knee saying, well, David, you know what we've got to do to solve these problems? We've got to pit the minorities against each other. This is a high-ranking person in Jerry Brown's first administration. And then, and then he had some involvement with something to do with San Francisco, and I went, oh, my God. Do they know this person? Do they know who he is? But he did get in trouble there because it was just. I got him set up to speak in Oakland to a black group, and he brought his big old. He had a military chauffeur, and I got him together with minority groups there, but he brought his big military vehicle with. It had a communication system inside, and while this event was going on that included Black Panthers, post-Huey Newton Panthers, and his car in Oakland, his car got totally trashed.
God.
Anyway.
Well, David, I feel like we could go on and on here.
Yeah.
But maybe we've covered the territory that we started out with.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, listen, I won't include all that. I was just the problems with diversity are just enormous, and the solutions a lot of times seem to me just oversimplistic. The most important thing, I think, is giving people rights and equal opportunity to make money.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
God.
And we're so far away from that.
Yeah, God. And I really come from the heart of white privilege.
Me too.
But
me too.
It's not much of an issue here.
You can't, we can't undo that.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't undo where we come from.
No, I loved it. I had a great time. I loved it. And I was, when I came home from the hospital with Mother, a black woman was there. She'd just started working for my parents. And she was there till I was 12 years old. And she was a very important part of my upbringing.
Yeah.
And I felt sorry for people that didn't have a black person in their home, and especially the ones that had a white person working for them. They were awful. It was a different culture, and it was softer, and it was. I loved it, and I really got into it too. When I was like 10, 11 years old, I'd go to concerts that was all black people. My parents would let me. Yeah. Well, anyway, all right. Well, thanks a lot for talking with me. I just wanted to see who you were. Now I remembered you from back then. Didn't you work on in the office some when we're raising money for Tassajara?
I might have. I don't remember doing that. I don't know.
Were you close with Trudy Dixon?
No, I would say I was close to her. I certainly remember her and have a nice feeling about her.
Yeah.
But I don't remember hanging out with her a lot.
How was your relationship with Richard Baker?
Well, it was mixed.
Mm-hmm.
There was this was a story I could have told much earlier in our conversation, but I didn't think of it then. But when I came to Tassajara, I came a little late. So I had to do, everybody had already done Tongariro.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to do it just myself and another young woman in this kind of, I remember this kind of a narrow little hut.
Oh.
And so we just sat together and sat, and what I remember is I would, just to get out of it, I would, just to be able to walk a little bit, I would then go to the bathroom.
Oh, yes.
And I took quite a number of trips to the bathroom. And then, so after, I don't think he said anything to me during Tangario, but after Tangario, he kind of criticized me, made critical remarks, something like, I kept seeing you walking around and you're supposed to be sitting in Tangario. So we had some of that kind of sense of his being critical, but we also had sometimes a friendly relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of mixed that way.
Yeah, I told him, once Tassajara got going and he felt such a strong sense of responsibility that he'd become like an uptight high school principal.
You told him that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, he's like Clinton. It said if Clinton, if you were critical of Clinton, you could get closer to him. And he wanted to talk to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you remember who the regular people were in the Zendo? In like 65 and early 66.
Well, there was Kathy, there was Kathy Cook, there was Evelyn, there was Silas, there was Tim, Linda, Stan, another Tim Buckley.
Yeah.
I just remember a woman named Cheryl. She might have had red hair.
Cheryl Luskatoff.
I also remember, and to my eyes, being 25, like an older woman, and I don't remember her name, but she was very, very consistent.
Well, there was Pat Karasoff, and there was Betty Warren, Della Gertz, and Jean Ross.
Okay.
Those are the older women.
Yeah.
Who were,
Mm-hmm.
Eva Goldscheid was earlier. But Pat Harrison, when I came in 66, Pat Harrisoff was there a lot. But also, Betty and Jean and Della had been sitting with him since 59. And I know Dick, Suzuki kept a seat for Dick up front, but he was really busy then, and generally people don't remember him there much in 66, 65, 66. He was working for UC. I remember him, but I've heard a lot of people say that.
Oh, if they didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wearing these kind of AirPod things.
Uh-huh.
You know, those kind of weird looking white things.
Yeah.
And I just got a message that one has run out.
Well, look, we've talked a long time.
Maybe it's...
Yeah, I've really enjoyed talking with you. This is the longest we ever talked.
Really? Yes, definitely.
And, it's really interesting to see how your spiritual path, if we call it that, has continued, That's true with so many of us back then. It's really unbelievable.
That is interesting.
Either one path or another, A lot of people still involved with Zen. Some people are not involved with any teacher or group, but are sitting regularly or whatever. It's just I wouldn't have guessed it, but
yeah.
it's really true.
I actually sat part of a retreat today with my husband's group.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just can't hold you back. Well, that's neat. Well, thanks a lot, Sheridan. It's really been good talking to you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, David. And enjoy Bali.
Yeah.
And you live in an amazing place.
Yeah. Well, it's got its good points.
Mm-hmm.
It's got its bad points, just like everywhere.
Just like everything.
Yeah.
Okay, David.
All right.
Take good care.
And you too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So thanks a lot, Sheridan Adams. And, I really appreciate what you had to say. And like I said, I am so impressed with all the people who continue their spiritual path. Anyway, it's and I love doing these podcasts because it's sort of encouraging to me. Here I am all alone on the other side of the world. So I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sanur with Doggett Bandita, Feline Manis, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.